Hi everyone, welcome back to the GoonerPod. I'm here with Adam. We're just going to have a quick chat, all things Arsenal. Adam, how are we doing, sir?
All good. And you?
All good, thank you, mate. Well, we'll start with a bit of breaking news, mate. Tavares has just joined Nottingham Forest on loan. Happy?
Well, I'd have preferred for him to go on the permanent move that was mentioned I think it's a couple of weeks back. But you know what? If he goes out and he does well, he's still in the Premier League. Um, yeah, I think it's a good move for him. And I guess we'll see how he goes there. Maybe he'll do well, and we'll get the fee. But uh, yeah, not a not a bad transfer.
No, it's all right, isn't it? I can't think who plays left back for them and who his competition might be. So it might be
No, I
a,
can't think.
a case that he probably plays a few weeks. And I think there's a buy option of 12 million
Hmm.
in it, which would make it fairly obtainable for Forest if they stay up and they want to keep him at the
Yeah,
club. So I think that's okay. I don't have any issues with the deal at all. I think we're going to see a lot of this before the end of the window now because we haven't got players out the door that getting their wages off the bill frees up money for us to go into the transfer market. It's the same with Tierney, isn't it?
yeah,
His 130, 140 grand a week is shifted off the wage bill. That means there's a good chunk of money that they can throw into the transfer market before the window shuts.
yeah,
And I think that the club's probably quite happy to do that rather than. And then if they're in the shop window, then aren't they? Because if they play, Tierney will probably play for a week with Sociedad, then they become sellable assets next summer.
yeah. Oh, to be fair, with Tierney, I was a bit like hit and miss with that because obviously we're just losing Timber. Um, I know Tierney doesn't play how Arteta wants to play, and obviously we've got Zinchenko back now, but um, I just felt like he had experience for a set of everything we've got on the left. Um, like Tavares, you won't really miss him. Will we miss Tierney? I suppose it's just one of those things. But again, it's good for him to get that move and get the minutes because, in my opinion, he's too good to be on the bench. So yeah, it was a bit of a bittersweet one really to see him go. But it's just one of those things, isn't it? But like I say, it's
It
money off.
it must mean we have something lined up. I know there's
Yeah,
been a few reports today suggesting we're looking for a right back, and I think that's probably because you views Kivior or even Tomiyasu as the backup left backs.
yeah.
Um, and a right back's
So
probably easier to obtain than a left back. And they're just,
yeah,
I think we said, didn't we, recently that for every good left back, there's three good right backs. It just seems to be how the ratios work
yeah,
for those positions. So I think that's probably where we're going to aim for, which isn't the worst thing in the world. I think we know the first choice 4 or 5 at the back, and anyone else needs to just be capable of backing that up. But it looks like Holding's going as well.
yeah.
And with Timber out for the season, or majority of the season, we are does seem like we need a body in, doesn't it? So I'm convinced they've got something lined up. We just don't
Yeah.
know about it yet. We haven't really been
No.
linked to anybody that I can tell you if they're any good or not. I don't know. Someone called Nelson from Galatasaray. I don't even know where he plays, but I know we've been offered him today.
No, I've not heard of him. But I mean, there's some players that we've bought in that I've not heard of before. Very little knowledge about. But I just trust what they're doing. At this point, if they're letting people go, then they've obviously got an idea of what they're going to do and what the implications are and such. So it might just be like you say, um, a lot of backup that comes in, maybe a youngster, somebody who's going to have the opportunity to, like all the other players, to prove themselves. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think so. Yeah, it would be a backup option, wouldn't it? I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing a youngster get the opportunity, to be honest, but I suppose we're not in that camp anymore, are we? We can afford to have a couple of youngsters in and around the squad and develop because there's so much expectation on us to win every game now.
Yeah.
Something we didn't manage to do at the weekend, and I know you was there.
Mm.
I assume, knowing you as I do, that you was in your seat for Fulham's goal.
Yeah.
I can imagine a lot of people missed it.
But I mean,
Yeah.
you're blinking, it was over, and it's interesting actually because when we kicked off, when the game kicked off, I was watching Ramsdale, and I was up the other end, so I was up the clock end, and I was watching obviously from a distance, so I could see. Like, I had a good view towards the north bank where Ramsdale was, and the first thing I thought was when he comes up, doesn't he? When we kick off, he puts the ball to Saka, Martinelli, whoever, and then he usually tracks back to close to his goal. That didn't happen. He spent quite an amount of time, I'd say about 10 seconds, between 5 and 10 seconds, like well out of his area. So by the time Fulham had the ball and were pressing back, he didn't have a chance to actually look back and position himself. But even though I had a good view of like where he's positioned and where the rest of the team were positioned, I was still quite surprised that the goal went in.
Yeah.
And part of me wondered, just seeing that, has the Raya transfer knocked his confidence a little bit, because it didn't seem like a typical Ramsdale mistake. Like, why was he? I mean, I had like 101 questions. Like, why was he positioned that high? Why didn't he save it? But I think that kind of set the tone really for, for the game. And then obviously it's difficult to do what Arteta's asked, because you concede in the first minute, and it's not the first time that it's happened. Like this year, it's happened, a few times this year. But yeah,
Too frequent, actually.
It was just a strange one to see him, that far up, and then not even get near it. But like I say, he didn't have time to look, and he was that far out. Yeah, it's quite a shock, really.
It's not acceptable, actually, the way we start games at home. I can't think of you can only probably think of a handful of goals in your life that have come in the first minute of a football match, and yet 3 in the last 9 at home for Arsenal, for a team that's supposed to be chasing the title. It's just not good enough. I mean, the Bournemouth one wasn't down to. I mean, they started with the ball, didn't they? And they just caught us cold. Fair enough, it can happen. We won the game. It was forgotten about. But the Southampton, and Ramsdale's been involved in both, actually.
Yeah.
And I know you say about Raya playing on his mind this time, but Raya wasn't at the club when he passed the ball to Alcaraz in the Southampton game. And it just, again, it's strike one for Ramsdale. That was, I mean, I thought Saka obviously give the ball away, but he's got so much credit in the bank. And also the shape of the team. We're 30 seconds into the game, and Partey's already moved out the right back slot, which meant there was a gaping hole between right back and where the centre half should have been, and Ben White was sort of caught between a rock and a hard place of where he should be.
Yeah.
The pass was poor, and Saka has to take responsibility for it. But the goalkeeping was atrocious. Utterly atrocious. And I've seen a lot of people defend him because they want to defend him, not because they should defend him. And I'm quite hard on Ramsdale because I don't think he's good enough to play and win the league. He's not a title-winning goalkeeper. He makes too many errors. He's too casual with the ball. He's too slow in possession, things like that. And there's so many goals that in the last 2 years you question, not necessarily a mistake, but could he have saved that? And when you're doing that constantly, you think there's something wrong here. And Raya was always Arteta's preference. Didn't get him the first time round. We bought Ramsdale instead. He's got his man. It's only a matter of time before Raya gets in goal, in my opinion. Just a matter of time. Arteta's ruthless. It's quite clear. He's pretty ruthless. I think that's strike one for Ramsdale. Any more, and he'll be out.
Yeah. No, I think I'm with you on that one. And how much I love Ramsdale. I do think he's a an upgrade on other keepers that we've had. And
Yeah,
he definitely, gets us some points in the games where he makes, those incredible saves. But at the same time, you don't see you see Edison making brilliant saves. You don't really see him making that many mistakes, or if he does, it doesn't then happen, 2 games after that, or 3 games after that, or 4 times in the same year. And that's the difference. Is that I think he has got potential to be a top goalkeeper in that if he can cut these mistakes out. But also, it's like how many points are we actually going to drop from silly mistakes? Because that at the end of the day, it's 2 points dropped
yeah,
because of it's our own fault. I mean, defending set pieces. I think it was last season we went however many games without conceding from a corner. I think we were the only team that went X amount of games to do it. And then this season, it's something completely different, and I think it's got a lot to do with the formation, the shape that he's playing, the formation he's playing, the players that he's playing, essentially out of position. But ultimately, it's down to the goalkeeper to save the goals.
yeah. Do you think the shape's that much of an issue? Really, that it's the same shape as last season, except with playing an inverted right-sided player instead of left because Zinchenko's been out. So
Yeah,
essentially, it's still a back three in possession. I think a lot of fans have jumped out their box a little bit on this. It don't get me wrong, I don't think Party's natural at it, but the shape's still the same. It's just the opposite way round. There's still an extra man in midfield, still a back three behind. I
yeah,
think there's two key elements to it. That's one, Zinchenko's just better at doing it because he can play both positions naturally. Thomas Partey is just covering at right back; he can't play there.
yeah,
And two, because Zinchenko has been unfit, it also has meant that Gabriel hasn't played because he's
yeah.
not seen as someone that can shift into left back.
No, no, I
Whereas
think
Kivior could, Tomiyasu can, Timber could before he got injured, but Gabriel cannot play left back, so he's not seen as an option to do that wide left role.
yeah. No, I
Um,
mean, I don't think
but
it's necessarily the actual shape. I think it's more the players that he's got in those positions because, like you
yeah,
say, Party was too high up when he should have been back. But actually, I think Ben White's better in that position, and obviously that's the position he's played, and he's got that link up with Saka as well. So I think for me, it comes down to how many points is Arteta willing to risk us losing by having Party out, technically out of position when you've got a good enough player in Ben. I could understand if Ben White was injured, but he's not. And again with the set pieces and trying to score from set pieces, Gabriel and Saliba, if one plays bad, the other one usually picks up. And that partnership, they've built that partnership. They know each other, they communicate with each other. And I think if you take one player out, that's one thing. But when you're moving multiple players, so obviously Ben White's moved, Party's moved, Gabriel's not there alongside Saliba, Zinchenko's not there because obviously he's injured. And then you've got a completely new setup in midfield where you've got Odegaard, Rice, and Havertz. You can't, play together as well as, Partey, Xhaka, and Odegaard did because obviously it took games to do it. And then the front three is, as it is, but Saka's not getting the service from Partey that he gets from Ben White. And then
no,
Zinchenko and Martinelli aren't linking up because it's not there. So it's not just about the shape, it's about the people that he's got where and how they play with each other. I don't see why, even if you've got Tomiyasu on the left or you've got Kiwior on the left, I don't see why you have to put Ben White in another position, put Party in another position, put 2 new players in with a team that they've not really had a chance to gel with, because that disrupts everything. It's about the spine of the team, and that I think Party, in my opinion, Arteta needs to play Party or Havertz with Rice, because the three, if you're sacrificing your defence to have more in midfield, then we're going to concede because obviously the truth is you win. You know, if you win everything in the midfield, if you control the midfield, you can control everything. That's how I see it with football anyway. Um, and it just seems like this early on in the season, um, I haven't been impressed. If I'm honest with you, I haven't been impressed with any of the performances because the level was so high last season. Um, we've just not reached. I just don't feel like we've got out of first gear at all this season, and I want to see that same football that we had last season, that fluid football, none of this passing back. There's been that many passing back to the goalkeeper and passing back to the defenders, and it's not just shifting, the direction of play. It's literally they're stalling around midfield, they're going back, and then having to build it all up again. Whereas last season it was that quick, it was that fluid. Um, teams couldn't cope with us, and that's why we did so well last season. But this season, it just feels different. I don't know how you feel about it. I think it just feels different. It doesn't feel like we're anywhere near the level that we need to be. Um, Certainly not to play, teams like City, Liverpool, even. Um, it's a little bit concerning, but I'm not going to think too much into it because obviously we are playing a different team, let's say. Um, but is Arteta going to be stubborn and stick with it and just hope that it works and it'll all fall into motion, or is he actually going to take a step back and say, this didn't work? It's not like we've lost Gabriel. It's not like we've, is that injured or anything. There's no real need for it. Because Ben White presses up. I know he doesn't sit in the middle, but he presses up, and obviously he's got that attacking edge and that link up with Saka. So I think it'll be interesting to see what he does on Sunday because obviously Zinchenko's back. Gabby's available as far as I know. So it'd be interesting to see how he's actually
I,
going to line up.
I think it'll be a much more normal lineup on Sunday because I think he'll start Zinchenko now because he's had a couple of half hours in his legs, so he'll be ready.
Yeah,
And that brings Gabriel back in,
yeah,
and alongside Saliba, Ben White goes to right back, and I think he's going to have to take Havertz out the team and play Party and Rice alongside Odegaard for a
yeah,
bit of stability. And just to take Havertz out the firing line, I feel a bit sorry for him. I just did say to you tonight at the weekend, it's the first
yeah,
time I got frustrated with him. Only because of a couple of incidents, though. There were a couple of times where he could have took the ball on the turn and drove at the front defence, took the easy option and got the pass wrong, and all of a sudden we was on the back foot again. And it's just lack of confidence. But I feel sorry for him. He's swimming against the tide already, and he's done nothing wrong in an Arsenal shirt.
no,
He wasn't swashbuckling at Chelsea, but who is? We could pick anyone out the Chelsea side, and we'd moan, "Oh, they're not good enough." Jorginho, we had it when we signed him.
yeah.
He's turned out to be all right. No one moans when he comes on the pitch, and he gives his all for Arsenal, and Havertz will as well.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I think he needs time like the rest of them. Like I say, you've got two players in there that have come in the middle, and they need to gel. They need to get to know each other. They also need to get to know the rest of the team, and it will in time flow. Whether he has, Odegaard, Rice, and Party, or he puts Havertz in. I think it'll depend. It'll depend on the opponent, which is the good thing about having those available, but also Havertz can play a more attacking role if we need him to. He's got the height. He's quite fast as well, and he needs the time. He needs the time, but I think if you put him in against United on Sunday at the obviously we all know as Arsenal fans what that game means. But if you put him in, and he doesn't do well, or he loses the ball or whatever, I think it's just gonna make things worse because unfortunately some fans are too reactive. But I think the normal formation, even with just a normal back four, even that would probably help him a lot more as well because or having Party actually in the middle.
Yeah.
But
look,
yeah, it's just
Saka was worse than Havertz was at the weekend. Not all. I know he's got credit in the bank, but if we're going to judge it by the game by game, like we should do, then he should be getting the stick. I didn't think Partey was any good. I know he's been played out of position, but he spends a lot of the game in midfield in his natural position. He was sloppy. There's no reason for sloppiness. Playing out of position isn't a reason for you to just give the ball away carelessly time after time. I can accept you being outdone by a pacey winger like he was against Alanga last week, or the week before, whenever it was. But there's no excuse for just giving the ball away. So, I mean, he took a throw in, and it was like watching a fucking 5-year-old take it.
Yeah.
Fucking hurtled it at the floor to a Fulham player. I looked at it and I think he should have been subbed there and then. And I wonder if he's not started the season well. And I think, is he sulking because he's out of position? But then he's still got the licence to play in midfield. He's been asked to do something for the team. And if he is sulking, he can fuck off, as far as I'm concerned, and go to Saudi.
No.
For all I care, because I don't want
you.
players like that at the club. He's not played well, and he's been sloppy in all the games.
And I think he is very hit and miss as well. He'll have a few good games, and then it'll be really sloppy. But again, it's the case of if Odegaard plays well or Xhaka played well, it kind of took it off him a little bit. It kind of made him look better than he actually was that game because they were doing everything. Whereas now he's kind of, with the new guys settling in, Odegaard can't do it all on his own. I think you're actually starting to see that he's not as great and he's not as confident when he doesn't have Xhaka next to him.
No, it annoys me. Really annoys me.
He gets dropped. He might get dropped, and we might just play Odegaard, Havertz and Rice, and that might be,
possibly
the team going forward. But
it has crossed my mind. I don't know if we'll see that against United.
No.
But Everton's the game after, and you may well see that. But again, going back to people picking on Havertz, Trossard was atrocious, absolutely atrocious on Saturday. Not a word said. And yet Havertz didn't really do anything wrong. Wasn't great, don't get me wrong, just like many of them. But he's the scapegoat. He's the reason we didn't win. He's the reason that we started sluggishly. He's the reason that we're playing a centre midfielder right back. And the manager's being a bit of a dick at the moment as well with his experimenting during the season. We didn't see this system at all in pre-season as well, I should say.
Yeah.
Of Partey filling in at right back. It was always Tommy Asu or Ben White. And then all of a sudden the season started and we're playing someone completely different out of position there. And Zinchenko wasn't fit all of pre-season either. So it wasn't like it was just forced upon him and Zinchenko got injured a couple of days before the first game. He didn't play a minute. So he had all that time to do something about it. And then we're going into the season trying to be too clever and do something else. And I do feel, I'll be honest, he's always on a knife edge with me anyway, because I felt he should have been sacked in the first 2 years, and he was lucky not to be. And he has changed my mind, and I think he's the right man to take Arsenal forward. But I always find myself niggling at his decisions. And I think it's just natural, because you naturally question him anyway, because you had doubts, and I had serious doubts about him. And I just think to myself, just do what was so good for us last year. There's a reason we went on that huge run. It's because we were doing the basics properly, and we had a settled side and a settled system. Don't fuck around with it. If you can't pick between Partey and Rice, you shouldn't be in the job.
Yeah.
Because it takes a set of balls to make that decision. He was ballsy when he kicked Aubameyang out the club, and the likes of Pepe not getting a kick, who was the record signing, and Ozil not even being registered and things like that. So make a decision.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what did you buy Rice for?
I think that's what I'm struggling to get my head around is that, he set this team up, he brought the players in, he got rid of players that weren't performing, he set the standard of that, we have to win by, any means necessary. And then I obviously know he's followed Pep and, he's his idol and everything, but tinkering with something that doesn't need tinkering with. Obviously, we lost Xhaka, so you bring in Havertz, that's fine. you bring in Rice because obviously, he's that marquee signing. He's, that player that they were talking about where you fill the gaps and you're aggressive and you go and get them. So obviously when they got these players, they already knew how they were going to put them in the squad and, how they were going to line up and where they were going to be positioned in the squad and stuff like that. And, who was going to fall second in line and all of that. But when we made changes against Palace, I think it was, we were on the back foot for quite a bit of that game, and then he brought on, I think it was Zinchenko, he brought on, and then almost immediately we had the possession back. The intensity picked up, the quality had picked up, and then it was the same when he brought on the subs at the weekend. The intensity picked up. We put the work in, we turned the result round, and then within a split second, within minutes of a player getting sent off, which is only a bonus because it's one less player to worry about. Within minutes of that happening, we've conceded to a cheap corner, and it's things like that weren't happening last season. That wasn't the standard last season. So for me, he just needs to stick with what he built. Don't change it. Just add on, add more quality into what you've got. Have the competition there because it's only a good thing, but don't mess too much with it. And obviously, I know he's the manager. I'm just following the team, but when you've seen that level that he got us to, and then you see what's happening now, it doesn't. I think he's overcomplicating is the best way to put it. It doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be the way that it is. It's not like we've got players that can't play in the positions that he has to change things around because obviously Ben can still play right back. You've got Gabby who's fit and available. The only position that's a problem is left back because obviously we've lost Timber, we've lost Zinchenko. But again, we haven't lost Zinchenko for the season. We knew we were getting him back. We knew he was coming up to fitness. So you just put somebody in there, Kiwi or Tommy. Obviously, I know Tommy has got sent off, but or even Tierney, you put that player in there to do a job which is to defend. And then when you get your player back, Zinchenko, Timber, whoever, then you change it round to what it needs to be, rather than doing what he's doing at the moment. And I do think the changes have. I think the out of position players have disrupted the flow of how we play. We can't play the attacking that we want to play because we've then got players out of position. And at the end of the day, this is the Premier League. If you give the ball away, teams are going to hurt you. So
yeah,
it just feels like it's a bit too much for me, and it's too soon, obviously, into the season to be doing stuff like this. If this is what we're doing when we've got an almost fully fit squad, what's going to happen when we've got injuries? Is Saka going to be playing left back again? It makes you then question. When we have actually got issues with squad and fitness, then what's going to happen then? But
no, I agree, and I think what I will give him some respite on is that he was right. We should have won that game very comfortably.
Yeah.
But then I didn't understand why Eddie has actually played quite well in the first two games, and why he was dropped. Give the boy a run. If he's your man, if you're giving him £100 contract, give him a run because it really didn't work with Trossard up front.
No.
And I know he has played well in certain games up front for us, and he did in pre-season, but he hadn't earned the right to just come in and start the game. You have to earn the right to play football. You can't just be given games out of fairness. And it's not like the team's tired. We're playing once a week at the moment, so I didn't get that decision. But he was right. We should have won the game by 5 or 6. We missed some gilted chances and just, Saka just didn't have his best game in front of goal, and Erdegaard had a couple of shots that could have done better with. Martinelli got in a couple of good positions where he should have hit the net and hit the ball straight down the keeper's throat. And Leno had a half decent game, which kind of expected coming back to Arsenal. So in a way, the results have flattered the opponents so far this season, even though we've not clicked fully into gear. So I guess, can you take positives from that as well if we're trying not to be completely negative? for
No,
the
I
whole
think,
pod. I suppose you can
the
take
main,
positives out of it.
yeah, I mean, the main thing is that we picked up points when we didn't play particularly well. And sometimes you've got to do that. I mean, you look at City; they've had a couple of tough games, but they've got the business done, and that's what we need to do. If we want to be up there challenging for it. Um, and I do think when things go back to normal, the normal formation, we've got the players that we need available to play how we wants to play. Then we'll start to see that standard that we're used to. But um, I mean, the truth of it is, if we go on Sunday and we beat United, and it's a good result, it's a comfortable win, everything that's happened will be forgotten about. We haven't
Yeah,
lost yet, which is a positive. If we go there and we do that, obviously the next home game is then Spurs, and the game after that City. If we avoid losing in those three games, then everything that I think what it is the lack of respect for the opponent, because we haven't played anybody significant, let's say. But then you look at the results that we hiccuped on last season, and again, they weren't the big teams. We did well against the big teams. We did well against, in derbies and such. So we haven't lost, and I think that's the positive, is that we haven't lost, even though we've not been playing the usual team. And that's what it is. It's about getting 3 points, or not losing. So you can't
yeah,
you can't
I
really
agree.
complain with that. If you look at what we've got around us, I think only City have got 100% record. Other teams have lost points. We're well up there. Things are going to improve, and the window's still open. We've still got players to get rid of. Hopefully, we'll get somebody else in. So it's not all doom and gloom. Um, we'll be fine.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Actually, I think there's such a fear of losing now, isn't there? And
Yeah,
every point matters so much more because we've made such a big jump forward in the last 18 months. It just we're just being a little bit maybe overreactionary. I don't know. I mean, I am guilty of it, and I'm first to hold my hands up to it. I get really invested in the games as do yourself and thousands of other people. And if you ask someone a question 5 minutes after the game, you'll get a completely different answer to 5 hours after the game, for example.
yeah,
And we're all guilty of it, so I don't blame anyone for doing it. But I do think some things are well over the top with what I've seen. Some of the Havertz stuff and that we've already touched on it, so we won't go back on it again. But
yeah,
it's it's just frustrating. It's sort of a game that you look at in the calendar, and we did before the season started, didn't we? And we both said we'd expected 9 points from August, and we've got 7, and it's not horrendous. I'm used to watching us under Wenger in August get 1 point out of 9. Start the seasons terribly, so it's not the end of the world. But when you really expect 9 points and you've got 7, you've drawn against a team that's gone down to 10 men as well. It's very, very frustrating, but I guess that's football. City nearly threw it away themselves against Sheffield United and scraped it late. So I guess that was a reminder to everybody that the league's not easy.
yeah. And it was
And
the same with Liverpool and Newcastle. Obviously, Liverpool went down
yeah,
to 10 men early on, and they managed to turn it around. A really difficult place to go, and it just Newcastle were brilliant, I thought, but then their fans will probably be disappointed and think that they should have won it. I think that's just what it is as a fan. You want your team to win. You reflect and you analyze the games, but in reality, you know, in the moment, there's nothing. There's nothing. You can hope that you win. You can hope that things change, but you know, if we'd have won that game 2-1, nobody would have said anything about the early goal. Nobody would have said anything about anything else. And it's the same with Liverpool. They won't be talking about the red card. They won't be talking about all the controversial decisions or whatever. They'll be talking about that they've got 3 points on the board. I think as fans, that's what we need to understand as well, is that we got a point on the board, and come the end of the season, it could be a valuable point, because I do think this season is going to be the hardest season that we've had in a long time. There's lots of teams that have improved.
Yeah.
New players coming in, teams need to gel. It's going to be a long season. I don't think it's going to be as the highs that we had last season, but I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a good one. I do think it'll be a good one for us.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a tough, long slog, and if I could give any advice to our fan base, it's just buckle up and get ready for a rough ride. I think because it's going to be a few ups and downs this year, more than last year. I don't think the team that wins the Premier League gets more than 82 points this year.
No, I agree. I think it's going to be really close. I actually think the top four is going to be 1 or 2 points between. I believe that with the winner as well. I think it's going to be that close.
Yeah,
And there's teams like Villa, Newcastle, Brighton. It's the same teams that were doing well last season that are gonna trip teams up, and then you've got your teams like Brentford, even Fulham, Forest, teams like that. They are gonna upset teams, and particularly the big teams as well. So I think there's no easy game, is there? And sometimes you just got to respect your opponent a little bit more. That you can't just go there and expect to win. Um, if you want, you've got to be the best team on the pitch, and sometimes you can be the best team on the pitch. And we saw this last season, didn't we? That we played really well and we dropped points, and then we played awful and got points, and it's just sometimes the results don't always reflect the overall performance. So um, as long as we don't get steamrolled, I think it will be fine.
yeah, no, I agree with that, and just have to, like I say, take each game as it comes, and hope that we don't dick around with formations and things like that. But
Yeah,
we like you've already said that you've already touched it on the nail on the head there. We will improve. We will get better, and it is still early days, and only one team has 100% record, and it's no surprise who it is. So we're still there, and we go again. There's a couple of positives I thought watching the second half on Saturday. I thought Eddie come on and was terrific, took his goal very well, really
yeah,
changed the game. I thought credit where credit's due. I thought he was absolutely fantastic, overshadowed by Vieira's impact, which
yeah.
utterly shocked me. I couldn't believe what I was watching. It was like a different player.
No, he was
Uh,
brilliant. He
I'm not
was
going to get
brilliant.
carried away with 35 minutes or whatever he was on the pitch for.
Yeah,
Um, he's got a lot to prove, but it's a hell of a way of starting if you're going to, prove people like me wrong that has given him a fair amount of stick. I'll hold my hands up. I'd written him off. But then watching that, you think, so hang on a minute, has he got it in him? Is there a player in him? He come on over Smith Rowe as well. Um, I can't think if it was you or someone else I was having that conversation with earlier or yesterday that
yeah,
he seems to be above Smith Rowe in the pecking order now.
yeah,
It was you, wasn't it? Because I said
yeah.
I
It
see
was
Smith Rowe
us.
as a wide man.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it was
but
us.
even so, he's still come on the pitch over Smith Rowe, and he bloody performed. I'll give him
No,
his
he
credit.
was.
He grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck and he turned it round. Fair play to
No,
him.
it was really. It was really good. Like you say, it's about doing it on a consistent base, and I think it was the Monaco game. When we did the pod, and I said that it was literally like right. I was the front row. He was right in front of me, and you could see it was sloppy. He wasn't. He was trying things, and it wasn't coming off. But you could see the intention was there. He was really giving it everything. And then obviously in the Community Shield, he got the penalty. You see how he celebrated for that. Um, but to see him come in and to do what he did, and again, like no disrespect to the opposition, but if he was to be doing that against teams like City, United, if he was having that impact then and like consistently, um, then he'd probably be knocking on, starting because the impact that he had, and I think it is down to Eddie as well. I think it's down to Eddie because he's sharp and he drags players out of position, and I think Eddie's got it at the moment. He wants to perform because he knows that Jesus is coming back, and Eddie wants to be starting. He's made that clear. He appreciates competition, but he wants to be starting for us. Um, and then Vieira to come in, obviously a young guy to have the link up, and to do that inside what was it like 15 minutes, 20 minutes?
Something like that. Yeah.
It was for him and Eddie to be the best players on the pitch, having come on for X amount of minutes. Um, I think that's what Arteta's trying to do, and I think that's where he does deserve credit, is because you've got these young players that are hungry, that want to play. So when they're coming on and they're getting their minutes, they're performing out of the skin. So for that half an hour that you're bringing them on as a sub, they're performing out of the skin because they want to play next game. And I think if Eddie doesn't start on Sunday, that doesn't make sense for me, because he's ready and he loves a goal against United as well. He's fast, he's sharp, he drags players out of position. Um, yeah, I think they both did well, but I think now Eddie's kind of knocking on to be starting, and I think he scored quite a lot of goals at home as well. His home record's quite good.
Yeah, and
Um,
but more importantly, that was one of his first goals off the bench, I think,
yeah,
which is which bodes well for him as well. There's a general improvement in Eddie overall,
yeah,
isn't there? It's, he's steadily improved. I'm much more impressed with his link up play these days, and um, his finishing at times needs to be better. But I guess with a run of games that could improve as well. I don't know, but yeah, I was happy for him. I thought he played well. He should have been on the winning side, both of them actually, Vera and Nketiah. Two positive substitutions, and I thought it was well the only shining light on a dull day, really.
yeah.
Once they equalised, it's and even when it went to 2, it was Vieira that was doing his best to get the game going again for us, and had the shot at the end, and he so yeah, positive shoots I suppose for those two, but yeah, disappointing not to get the win to go with it. I think we'd have been a lot
But
more
then,
positive about it if we got the win as well.
but on another positive is that I think we're too soft when it comes to scoring goals, because we've got a tendency to get the goals and then sit back and just see out the game. Whereas Man City and Liverpool, every time they get the ball, and you see this when they win 6-0. Obviously, Liverpool beat United 7-0, and they were absolutely relentless. Every time they have the ball, every opportunity they had, it went in the net. It doesn't matter if it's 10-0, whatever. You've seen teams do it. You've seen teams like Bayern do it, and if we want to be up there with them kind of teams, then we need to be putting everything away. It doesn't matter if we're 5-0 up, still go for 6. If you're 6-0 up, go for 7. Um, and I do think, looking at the result, obviously we were already 1 down, but I think we need to be killing games off, but still controlling the game, in the sense that we're still trying to get another one. So if it's 3-0 by half time, you come out, in the second half and you're going for number 4, you're going for number 5. And I think only when we start to have that kind of attitude will we get there. Because I've seen, we've had 4-0, stuff like that, but then we tend to kind of like step off the gas a little bit, and then that's when teams start to give us a problem. We'll concede, we'll lose the clean sheet or mess us up a little bit. And I think maybe Arteta will be looking at that. That we had that game turned on its head, 2-1. But actually, if we'd have gone 3-1, which we did have the opportunity to do, or if we'd gone 1-1 at half time, if we'd have actually been more clinical with what we were doing, there's less chance, there's less opportunity for the opponent to come back then. And that's what I'd really like to see from us this season, is, kill off those games, like really kill them off. Don't give any hope to the opposition, like with Liverpool last season. But, we scored the two early goals, didn't we? Go for the third one, go for the fourth one, and don't give any hope to the opposition, because if it, even if it's 3-0, if they get one back, one can turn to 2, and and it was the same with Liverpool, wasn't it? We were on the back foot for at least 15 minutes of that game, when really we could have had it wrapped up at 3-0 by half time, not give them any hope, any fire or anything. So that's what
No,
I
I
hope
agree.
to see from us. That I think that's where we're a little bit soft, where we kind of show too much respect to the opponent. Whereas, if that was City against us or United against us, that could be 10-0 up by half time, but they'll still be going for 11. And I think that's what we need to do now is just go there, get as many goals as you can, literally kill the game off as soon as you can, but still control it. Don't step off, don't, save your energy, still keep going. Um, yeah,
No, I agree. It's probably our biggest weakness as a team is the lack of ruthlessness, and I guess it might come with age. Um, Last year it might have been a little bit of we haven't got the squad depth to go full throttle for 90 minutes, so they have to take their foot off the gas and reserve energy, thinking about the game after. You should be able to take the 2-0 lead team as good as ours, but we didn't for different reasons. So I would say it's probably our biggest weakness. Actually, we are not ruthless enough when we need to finish a game off. We don't, and we did it a few times last year. Actually, being 3-0 up and then we'd concede and then go and score the fourth. But we should never be conceding a goal in those situations either. So
yeah,
it's something I'd like to see us get better at, but um, it's hard to pick fault with a team, isn't it? That's given so much joy over the last 18 months, 2 years.
yeah,
That's on its path, and it is young. But I just thought, we'd make the signings this summer, signings that were all ready to walk into the first team, and we'd be well better than we have been. But
yeah.
I
No,
guess,
I think Sunday will be the real test. And if I'm being honest, I don't think United have been that great this season. So I think you've got two teams that aren't anywhere near the level that you expect them to be. Um, and it'll be a good test. We could both come out and be much better than we were. The last few games. But I think it's a real test, and it's obviously we're at home, which is the advantage. Um, but yeah, let's just see what happens Sunday. I'm hoping for a good game. I think it'll be a good game, and I hope
yeah, I think it
hope
will
we
be a
win.
good game. I think it will be a good game. I think actually we'll revert back to type a little bit, and it'll be a lot more comfortable on the eye and the heart for the fans. And I think it'll be sort of Arteta might. I genuinely believe a big part of the system is Zinchenko not being fit, and now he
Yeah,
is. I think you'll see it go back to normal.
yeah. No, I
And
think
and
that's what we
realistically,
need.
we should still have got 9 points, even though the performance hasn't been great, and we didn't, just through a couple of errors. Not
Yeah,
not the system per se, although it's not as fluid and pretty on the eye. I mean, Zinchenko is a massive part of that system, and even Tomiyasu was banned for it, and he probably would have played at left back if he hadn't been sent off against Palace. So,
yeah,
yeah, I think we'll see a lot more normal from Arsenal on Sunday. I hope.
yeah.
Anyway, I hope. Um,
And then if it works, don't tinker with it. Just leave it as it is. But
exactly.
no, I agree with you. And obviously you've got Gabby back now as well, which is another positive. So maybe it's just a short term thing that Arteta just feels that he's got to do, and going forward we'll change it back to what we know and get that entertaining football back. But do you know what? As long as we win on Sunday, I don't care. If it's the same kind of performance as Fulham, as long as we get the points, it doesn't matter to me. It's the points that are most important. Of course, it's great to watch, free flowing football, but you can't do that week in, week out. So yeah, just 3 points. That's all I'm bothered about.
Yeah, 3 points. All like you say, you already said it. All we forgotten on it.
Yeah,
All we forgotten going to the international break. I think it is after the Man United game, isn't it? And you sort of like you can just take stock again, can't you? Then and just relax a little bit. And what would that be? That would be 10 points from the first 12. It's not atrocious. Yeah, and we go again for the stint after.
yeah,
So we've got Was it 3 days left of the transfer window?
Yeah, I believe
What are you
so.
expecting?
A lot of outgoings, um, probably on loans rather than permanents. But I'd like to see us maybe get um, one player in. But even if we don't get anybody else in, it's not it's not the end of the world. But I think a right back could probably make sense. And like you say, they're easier to get than left back. So maybe just bring in a right back just as that extra little bit of cover. But other than that, I think what we've got, the players that we've got on the bench, the regulars. I think we're looking good. So not too much in terms of like coming in, but outgoing. I think obviously Rob Holding's been linked with a move. We've got a lot of players that are kind of just not really going to get a sniff. I think Smith Rowe is probably going to be one to watch. Um,
Do you think we're
but I
selling?
wouldn't.
I don't
I
see
don't know
it.
what's. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with him. I mean, he's going to get opportunities because we've got a lot of cup games, but I think it's going to depend on him. I think it's going to depend on him and how he feels about not getting minutes and obviously his development because he's 23 now, isn't he?
Mm.
So obviously he's older than other players that are getting opportunities. Then you've got players like Reese as well. I'd like to see him get more opportunities, but it's about balance, isn't it? It's about getting that balance. Um, but I certainly don't think he'll be going to Chelsea. I don't think the club are that stupid to let a player like Smith Rowe, who's clearly talented. Obviously, I know he's had his injuries and such, but before his injuries, he was one of our best players. If being honest about it. Um,
I think it's just I've got no doubt that Chelsea have inquired. Um, no doubt about it at all. But I think any media outlet suggesting that we're open to a deal is wide of the mark.
yeah,
I really do. I
no, I
think
don't.
his talent has not been forgotten just because he's had a year of being injured. But he's
No,
got to work his way into the team. You can't just force him back in because it's Smith
mm,
Rowe and he come through the academy. He's one thing against him is no one really knows what his best position is,
yeah,
which doesn't help him. And two, he can't. Can you trust him to be in the side 5 or 6 games running?
mm.
He hasn't earned that trust yet because his injury record suggests that he's not capable of it.
Do you feel like a loan would probably be better for him, loan to like a Premier League
Um,
team?
well, instead of selling him, yeah, but I'd rather not do either, to be honest, and
Yeah,
have him in and around the squad and getting plenty of minutes and starting
mm,
cup games and rotating with the team in the league and earning his place naturally. He's more than good enough to play.
yeah,
It's just, but you're not going to take Martinelli out for him just on a whim, are you?
no,
Or Saka or Erdegaard, and the one you could argue was Havertz, but I think we all agree that Rice should play there instead of anyone anyway.
yeah, yeah. I
Um,
mean, out the two, but like you say, the cup games, he'll have the opportunity to get his minutes there, and if he impresses there, then he'll hopefully get his maybe off the bench. Obviously, we've seen it with Vieira on the weekend. If Smith Rowe comes and he has that kind of impact, he's then giving the manager a headache, and I think that's what Arteta wants. He wants all of his players performing to the top level, so that whoever he puts where will perform to the level needed.
yeah, I agree. I don't see him leaving. I don't want him to leave.
No,
Certainly not to Chelsea. I think you're right. I think Holding will go. Um, Suarez obviously just gone. Balogun's deal was meant to be completed tomorrow. I still think
what's
Pepe will
happening with
leave.
what's happening with Cedric? Because I've not heard anything about him. Are we terminate his contract
Well,
or?
he was on the list of potential departures. I see something earlier.
Mm,
It might have been Romano that said it.
yeah,
Um, I should imagine they're trying their hardest to get him out of the club. Uh, there must be a couple more. Lakonga,
yeah.
I can't see him playing much of a role this year. I would have thought if El Neni had been fit, that he might have been up for sale. That's got to be it, hasn't it? That does start leaving us thin then.
Yeah.
Tierney have already gone out, then Timber injured. I would have thought if they can get rid of those players, they'll bring in one or two maybe. I wouldn't mind us putting in a bid for Tony now, for January. I know that's probably clutching at straws. In fact, that is clutching at straws. But
I'd read a article the other day that he's been kind of flirting with joining us and saying that he obviously wants this move to a bigger team when he can, and saying that he loves the way that Arsenal plays. Always been a fan of Arsenal and such. And before everything happened, with his band and stuff, he was a player that obviously for summer I'd have, a lot of teams would be in for him. But I'd have loved for us to got him. And obviously I really rate Ollie Watkins as well, but he's one of those players when his confidence is off, he doesn't perform too well. And I think in a sense he's kind of like that Nketiah kind of player where, he's kind of proving himself and such. But I think maybe like a right winger, but then I don't know what's going to happen next. Obviously, we're letting Pepe go. He's obviously not going to get in the squad. I know there were mentions of him potentially being reintegrated and given a chance, but I think that went cold pretty quickly. But then obviously we've got Reece as well. I'd like Reece to get a chance, but I mean, what's your opinion? Do you see Reece as like back up to Saka or not so much?
I think we all like Reece Nelson, don't we? But he's not of that standard. There is a big drop off. I mean, I'd argue the drop off's the same as that and Saliba and Holding. In terms of quality, you just don't see any errors that lead to goals or anything because he's high up the pitch, and the strikers get that good grace, don't they? The majority of the time. Yeah. I actually think Reece plays better off the left, and he would be more of a backup to Martinelli. I actually think you might see Jesus play on the right a little bit this season.
I'd actually like to see that. I'd actually like to see that, to be honest, to see Martinelli, Eddie, and Gabby. I'd actually like to see that and see how they play, because I just feel like it'd be interesting.
And I think
that'd be interesting.
Yeah,
I don't want anything to happen to Saka, but
no, but there's got to be someone there that can back him up adequately.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, if there was someone to bring on, he would have been taken off at the weekend.
Yeah.
He was poor, but then again, he has got that match-winning ability. So it's hard. I get it. I get why it's hard for the manager, and I get why it's hard to recruit. It's the same. Tottenham have had that problem for years with Kane. They've never been able to get a backup striker in the door of any quality because no one wants to sit on the bench behind him.
Yeah, and you're not going to get sniffed.
No, and it's kind of in that territory now with Saka, isn't it? As if you're sniffing around a right winger, well, they're like, well, am I playing or is he? Oh, well, he's first choice. Well, then see you later. I'll go somewhere else. And I think probably the best option is actually to try and keep Pepe if you can't buy a buyer. I don't want to just pay him off, just use him. Or Reece. But I read something today that if he doesn't play in the Champions League for us, Pepe, then the deal is only 42 million to Lille, not 71 or 72 or something like that. We save 31 million if he doesn't play Champions League football for us.
Which means you could probably put him in for a Premier League game or a cup game before, and then obviously keep Saka for. No,
I did read. I've read this a few times now with this Pepe deal that actually it's not a straight cut as everyone thinks. They just get 72 million over 5 years. A lot of it was bonus related, including him doing certain things, winning the league and things like that. And they've missed out on loads of bonuses. But playing Champions League football was a major one, apparently.
Yeah.
So then it turns out that he wasn't such a flop.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes, if you look at what 40 million got you back, back when we actually got him. And even now, 40 million doesn't really get you. You've got players like Mount going for 60 and obviously Havertz for 65. And
Oh yeah,
I mean,
well, 40,
I
40 million don't get you shit, does it these days?
no, I mean, I was reading, well, I was watching a video where I think it was Talk Sport maybe, where they compared Pepe's stats against, I think it was Sancho and Anthony. And Pepe is well clear. And to be fair, I know we've touched on this on, I think it was the episode one pod. Um, would we see a different Pepe? Would we see a different quality in this team? Would
Absolutely.
he? Because I mean, he scored goals for us and he scored some crackers. Let's be honest, he cut in and whipped it. Um, would he? I think it was Europa as well. He scored a cracking free kick, didn't he? Do you
Mm.
think if we gave him a chance, even as backup to Saka, you like to say, put him in for um, the Premier League games, don't pay the money to Lille for that, but just give him a chance. Give him a few games, bring him on, save Saka's legs. We might actually be
Yeah.
surprised because he wasn't terrible. He
No.
wasn't terrible, but he wasn't great either. He was very inconsistent. But I think with the quality that we've got in, Ben, Party, Rice, players there that can, if you just let the ball go, obviously they'll win it back, you'll get another chance. Um, and then obviously whipping the balls into to Eddie, Gabby, whoever. Um, like you say, we've already paid the money. We might as well just, instead of going and buying somebody else and not knowing what you're getting, how they're going to fit in or how they're going to feel about being left out. Pepe already knows at this point he is not starting. He's going to be back, or which he seems to accept. He accepted it when he was, with us. I think he was only sent out on loan because there's obviously an issue there. Or there was an issue there. Uh, but maybe just focus on getting, another defender in and just keep Pepe in the team,
Do you know?
keep him
I read
for a
something
couple games.
the other day that Arteta's biggest issue with Pepe wasn't his ability or even his work rate and that, because I never thought he was lazy. To be fair, either
No,
it was his social misfit, very quiet, didn't really learn a
mm,
lot of English, um, was quite socially awkward around the core of the group, and it was just like,
mm,
well, and it wasn't like it just didn't reach the personality levels that Arteta wanted rather than ability. But if he's gone away and come back and knuckled down, and I've heard that
yeah,
he's been quite impressed with Pepe's attitude since he returned.
mm,
I don't know if these things are sort of things that just leak to the press so you can find a potential buyer, but if, I'm in the same camp as you, mate. There's far worse backup right wingers in the world than Nicolas Pepe.
mm,
And actually, until he got in, I didn't realise he got injured at Nice just after Christmas, and
yeah,
that's why his season tailed off. I thought he just had a stinker. I didn't
no,
realise he actually got injured and missed a fair amount of the games.
mm,
And until then, he was doing quite well. I think he scored
yeah,
6 goals and got 4 or 5 assists in the first 21 games or something like that, which isn't bad for a team that's
no,
mid-table in France. So it's not horrific. And if he could chip in with 5 goals and 5 assists off the bench for Arsenal this year, that's his job done as far as I'm
yeah,
concerned.
he
We know
would.
he's not going to start games. He can also play up front. He's all probably would come in and still be the best finisher.
Mm,
Um, and I just think like Arteta's first full season when we finished eighth, I think it was. He finished that season on fire. He was the right
mm,
winger. He was in the team. Saka wasn't. Or Saka might have been at
yeah,
left back at the time actually, but
yeah,
it wasn't
probably.
Saka. It was, and then he got sort of displaced early in the season by Willian, and he took the place back. Finished top
Mm,
scorer. He scored 18 goals that year or something like that. Some of them were
yeah,
rockets, but he scored something like 9 in his last 5 or 6, didn't he,
mm,
that season? And it was like
which
that's what you want
is,
to see.
yeah,
Set him
and
free with the ball. We just started to play a little bit better football, a bit higher up the pitch. He wasn't having to receive the ball on the turn halfway in his own half, which obviously wasn't the strength of his. But if you can get him on the ball, running onto the ball in the final third, you've got a very dangerous player.
yeah, and I
Um,
think as well, like you're looking at the team that we were playing where, we didn't have a great defence. Midfield was all right, but really our threat was in Aubameyang, Lacazette, Pepe. If you put him in this team where he's got quality around him, because you can put an average player in a quality team and they'll look much better than they are. If you do that with him, because he has got quality, I think he would need to be consistent. He's not gonna bench Saka. That's not gonna happen. But he's a good backup option that's experienced. I think he's an old. I think he's like 27, is he something like that? So obviously he's an older member
like that, yeah.
of the squad, but he's still got potential. He's still got something that we can improve on, and you know, it doesn't make sense if you've got a player like that who's scored that many goals, who's contributed that way in a team where we weren't that great. Let's be honest. What can he do? Can he be the super sub? Can he come on? Can he impact the same with Vieira, because and even Eddie. If he comes on, you bring players like that on, you completely change your attack. It'd be hard to kind of contain when you've got somebody who's got that much energy and that much pace and that quality as well.
Well, we should. Go on, mate. Sorry. I was going to say we should add. I would suggest half of Pepe's games at Arsenal would have been off the bench as well, which makes his stats even more impressive.
No, maybe we should just give him a chance and see what happens. Don't have to play him in the Champions League. That's when you want your usual guys playing, and we're gonna have a lot of fixtures. We need quality as well as quantity. So if they are going to reintegrate him, then that's fine. But on the personality side of it, I do feel like Arsenal before everything changed. There was very much groups. There was players that were singled out. There was groups of players that were loved and could do whatever. But now it's more like a family kind of environment. You've got people looking out for each other. I think Rob Holding said Kiwi was quite shy. But as a well-respected member of the team, and I think Pepe coming back into that. Forget what happened before. Forget about the hassle with the Aubameyang and all that stuff. Those players are gone now. It's a different team. As long as you do what you've got to do out on the pitch, and you're respectful, the manager's decision, then I don't see why there'd be an issue. I do feel like the club and the team seem to be quite supportive of each other. The fans are definitely more supportive of the players. Bob, obviously, what's been going on with Havertz, but I think he's just it's a new Shaka, isn't he? Once he starts to prove himself, if he plays on Sunday and he scores on Sunday, it'll be the best thing since sliced bread. You won't hear nothing else about it. So we'll just see what happens with Pepe, but I wouldn't be against him being included in some way. Being on the bench to come on and impact games. I think we just overlook him because Aubameyang was so good, wasn't he? He was the main man, but actually Pepe is not. He's not a terrible player.
No, not at all. Yeah, I think. Let's say we could say it all day long, but I think we should give him a chance. Yeah. There's plenty of others at Arsenal that have been that got more chance than him and let Arteta down more. So I think it'd be one to watch towards the end of the window, because there's not been concrete links with him going away, is there? So he could well find himself at the club.
Yeah, it's not like they're trying to push him out either. I've not heard anything that they're trying to push him out. And nothing that he's against. He's against staying. So I've not heard that he's like training away from. I think he's not actually training at the minute, is he? But I don't think he's. I've not heard anything about him being pushed out to with other players and stuff. Whereas I think the other guys, Cedric, Holding, they're all training away from the first team, aren't they? But I've not really heard too much. To be honest, I'd have to have a look into it from some credible sources. But if he's still there,
I'm just looking now. I do apologise if you can hear my washing machine, by the way.
No.
Um, it says here, I mean, there's a link about an hour ago saying he's still one of the names we're looking at working on an exit for,
Mm,
along with Cedric. Balogun is obviously out the door.
yeah.
This is from Chris Wheatley actually.
Mm,
Cedric is wanted by several European clubs ahead of a likely exit. Arsenal working on a number of exits further, including Nicolas Pepe, Connor and Balogun set for departure. Tavares is
mm,
gone. Holding looks like he's out the door. Tierney's gone. So with all of that, I mean, that saves about 500,000 a week in wages.
yeah.
With any potential transfer fees you get in the door as well, it could be a decent little nest egg there,
Mm.
which I'd expect them to reinvest. But they
I
may
think we've
well
made
not want to
some.
panic. They may want to wait for January.
Yeah. No, I think we've made
Um,
some like sell on fees as well because I think Guendouzi we've made 15% on
yeah,
whatever he's gone for. There was another player whose name escapes me now that's gone. I think we've got like I think it's Mavropanos as well. I think we've got some like
that's it.
five
Yeah.
percent or something for him. So I was like, however many percent that is. I can't remember what I said. So it's all money that adds up and it's all money that goes into the pot to for other wages or another player or even a loan. Um, yeah, it's just it's I think I read earlier. I don't know how much truth's in it because I didn't really look into it too much, but apparently, um, Balogun is our highest sale.
Yes, I've heard that, which is not surprising, really. We've not ever taken advantage of the transfer market
But
in
then
that sense.
it makes you think some of the players that we've had, we've bought players in for, 50, 60, and then they've just gone. And I think that's why the club changed, how they deal with things. If you either sign or you go in. And I know they've let a few contracts run down, but I think they've let them run down knowing that, the player's got every intention of signing a new deal.
Mm.
Um, but actually, like how much money we've lost on players, and to think that a player like Balogun is our highest fee for a club like us isn't good enough, in
No, it's
my
not.
opinion. I know we haven't really had many players to offload, and by the time they go in, they're kind of not the level that other teams are going to want anyway. But then when you've got teams like, Chelsea getting 60 million from Mount, 65 for Havertz, they're and even teams like City, they're generating more than what they pay for the players, or roughly the same. I mean, obviously, Chelsea made quite a lot out of that, and they can then reinvest that into the team. So, I think they slapped like 200 million or something like that on Gabby, on Big Gabby, that he, said he wanted him to have to pay that. But I mean, I read it and it just absolutely baffled me to think, he's not really going for all that much. Obviously, he's not going for as much as wanted. Um,
I think
but it's
part of
that
that is a
case of,
sell-on clause, though.
yeah,
So part of that
it's
reason
just,
is they got 30% profit sell-on clause or something, or 30% of his next transfer fee or something. So you
yeah,
get the lesser fee now because
mm,
what I think will happen is he'll absolutely smash it at Monaco and then PSG will buy
yeah,
him.
yeah,
And then you get 30% of that. So it'll end up being close to 60, something like that
yeah.
overall.
Which isn't,
But yeah,
it's not a bad amount, is it? But yeah, I think
no,
the sales definitely need to improve. They need to actually get in what the players are worth, and I think it's difficult with what we've got at the minute because they're not really, with no disrespect to players, but they're not really worth, much, are they? So,
not with the high wages as well. We've had a
no,
period of time at Arsenal where we've had to pay people too much money to get them in the door. And then
mm,
when it comes to getting them out the door, no one wants to match the wages. So you either have to
yeah,
take a reduced transfer fee, don't you, to supplement it, or pay them off. And
yeah,
hopefully, I always thought this, might be the last summer of doing this shit, and it should be. After this summer, there should be no one left at the club that's not got high
mm,
value or is actually wanted at the club.
Yeah,
I think the only one we'd argue as a fan base would probably be El Neni, but he's out of contract anyway next year,
yeah.
so
And I
he'd
don't
walk
think he's
away
on
anyway.
particularly. Yeah, I don't think it's on particularly high wages, and you know what?
No,
Is that kind of player, and I think we touched on it on the episode 2 pod. Is that he's not a bad player. He's a player that will come in, he'll give his all. It's not a problem player. So, um, I think there's worse players to. I mean, we could have had like Aubameyang on the bench earning 350 grand a week, but when you have to make that decision, the club will make it. But actually, you've got Aaron, and he's probably only on about, I'd say about 40, which is obviously still quite a lot. But you've also got younger players that aren't getting a look in at the minute, which would be on like similar wage, but you've got experience with Aaron, and that's a difference. So, um,
mm,
it's not a, a you know a terrible situation, I don't think. But like you say, after this window, there won't really be anybody, any kind of fringe player. Everybody will have value. They'll be, young and experienced and stuff. And if players want to come in and take players that aren't getting a look in, like your Smith Rose, and he wants to go, you can generate a good fee. Quite a good fee out of that. I think. I mean, just using Smith Rowe as an example, I think he'd be a 60 plus because obviously he's English as well.
mm.
I'd say you could get at least 60 plus for him in today's market.
What if Chelsea slapped that on the table Friday? Then would you take it?
Mm, no, I think no, I think if you're selling to a direct rival, then Arsenal have got to do what other teams have done to us, and they know they've got the money. If you want the player, then they'll have to pay a higher price. In my
Mm.
opinion, if you sell to a direct rival, then you get you inflate that price.
Yeah,
And if it's teams like Chelsea, obviously they've got the money. Teams like Man City, anybody that's actually going to be a challenge. I mean, not that I've completely changed my opinion on Chelsea, but if Man City come knocking, we'd be 75, 80, because that they're going to change that player. He's going to improve. He's actually going to. I mean, he's in my opinion, he's already worth like 60 plus. But yeah, I mean, and then it's either you take it or you leave it, because we're in that position where we don't have to sell him. I think we're in a position with our players where we don't have to sell them. So if you want them, then you're going to pay the price that we're asking, and we're going to use that to get another player in, or whatever. I do think that will happen. Um, in the future. But anybody, any higher Premier League team, any rival, Arsenal need to be ruthless there as well. Instead of just basically dropping them off and tying them up in a bow, they need to be quite aggressive. That yeah, if you want to take our player, then you're going to pay. And it was the same with Gabby, wasn't it? It was the same with Mount. Um, and even Havertz, you got to pay the price that they're asking. They don't budge on it. And I think Arsenal need to be the same. That's the asking price, and you either pay it or that's it.
I agree. We've been waiting for this for years to be in this position as a club and be able to stick up for ourselves and stand our ground in the transfer market and things like that. So I couldn't agree more, mate. I think, and we have that squad now that players, teams are going to want our players, but they're going to have to pay
Yeah,
top dollar for them.
yeah. And they can go if
Moving
they pay the
forward.
money. There's always another player, and if players want to go and they're going to get off more money and they don't want to play for us, then we're in a position where we haven't just got a player stamping the feet saying, "Oh, I don't want to play," or I want to go to this team. And I think it's similar with the fella from Wolves at the minute. Obviously, City have come in, they
Yeah,
want him. Wolves are saying no. The players saying, "Oh, I want to go," and Wolves are saying, "Well, I think they offered 50 million, didn't they, City?" But they know City have got money because they bid 105, 105 for Rice, and the player they're going in for is the top player. Is one of Wolves' best players. Wolves need the money to reinvest because obviously financial fair play. So if he wants to go and the club want him, then Wolves have got the advantage of this is what you need to pay, so pay it or go away. And I think Arsenal are in that position definitely. But the difference that we're seeing is the same with Saliba when he signed, um, Saka when he signed. No doubt Saka would have had people approach him through his agents and kind of getting a feel. Is he wanting to move? Stuff like that. But I think the difference is our players actually want to stay, which actually makes it
Yeah,
harder for other teams to come in because they're buying into what Arteta's doing. They're buying into the project. They've already seen the progress. Um, the fans and the players are closer than ever, in my opinion. The atmosphere at the stadium, it's not as lively this season, which is a little bit understandable. It's a bit cagey at times. But last season, once we got started, home and away was just, unbelievable. So there's no reason why our players would want to leave. It's like as long as we're competing, we don't need to worry about anything like that. And I think that also puts us in a stronger position for, you know, putting down prices on our players that, we think they're worth and clubs are gonna pay if they want, if they actually want them. So, um, but it does, like I say, it doesn't mean that, PSG or Man City come in and slap 200 million down for Saka. He could say, "Oh, I'm not interested," which is essentially what he did when he signed his contract.
I hope he does do that. If that ever happens, good God, I don't think I could cope with going through that cycle again of losing your best players to your rivals. But like you say, I
No,
do think we are a place where players want to be. And it makes keeping the players that much easier, doesn't it? I suppose.
yeah,
But then you
oh,
see,
it is.
Man City this year they lost Gundogan, they lost Mahrez, two top players for them that have won everything,
Mm,
and you think it can happen.
yeah,
It can happen, and I'm a little bit shocked actually that a couple of our players, the Sakas, the Salibas, and that haven't been approached by Saudi. And I just wonder if it's just a year too early for the Saudi clubs to be going after that type of player. It's all very well getting a 32-year-old Mahrez, but it's not the same as
yeah.
a 22-year-old Saka, is it?
No, but
Um,
I'd kind of hope as long as we're competing. I think the differences with players like Saka, even Bellingham, players like that. It's not necessarily about the money. It's about the competition and stuff. And I know Saudi have got a lot of money, and a lot of the older players are going because they've already played in the best league in the world in the Premier League, or they've moved to around to other clubs, and they're kind of ready to hang up the boots. It's just generate as much money as they can, and you know what, you can't blame them if somebody offered me, to do the same job for that amount of money, and the lifestyle that obviously they'll have over there. I saw a video of Fabinho being gifted a Rolex by one of the fans over there because he's had a good game. I mean, it's
really,
obviously it's like another world, obviously over there.
it's,
But I
it's
think
mad, isn't it?
you've seen other teams that have been approached and have said, I want to stay. Um, they want to stay with their teams and they want to play in the Champions League and such. So no, I'd like to think players like Saka, Saliba, they're good enough to play in this Premier League. They're good enough to play at the highest level, and it will come to a point where good players are going over there, good young players. I think we've already seen that with a couple
Mm.
um, already, but generally, I'd like to think footballers still want to play in the biggest competitions, and it's not all about it's not all about money. It's about winning things. It's about um, with Saka, he's playing for he's playing for his club. You can see he loves Arsenal. Same with Eddie. Um, and the same with, Martinelli. He said that if Arsenal keep giving him the contract, he'll keep signing them. That's how he feels about us. And it's quite proud, really, as a fan to know that after the last 10 years where we've seen our best players, Van Persie leave, go and win the league with United, losing those players, we're not in that position anymore, and I don't think we need to be worried about that because, like we were just saying, if they come in and they want the player, they're going to have to pay. They're going to have to pay top dollar for the player, and we'll either get somebody in through the academy, the same way as we have with Eddie and Eddie Smith Rowe. and Saka, or we'll go out into the market and we'll get the next upcoming talent. And I think we've got the right people in the right places in the club to do that. Obviously, we found Martinelli, 6 million. When he doesn't play like a £6 million player, and same with Saka, he doesn't play like an academy player as such. He's a top player, and he's only going to get better, which means his price is rising. So I don't worry at all about it. I don't worry about. I was a little bit worried about Saliba. I'm not going to lie.
But he's not coming through the academy, is he? So you had that
No,
jeopardy with him, I guess. But
and there was all that conflict before.
yeah,
When he went out on loan, there was that conflict, and he was not playing for us, and obviously it knocked his confidence a little bit, and you could tell the manager wasn't 100% sure. But the difference is, and I think that's where his mentality comes into it, is that he kind of took that on board. I think he said that Arteta didn't speak to him, so he did the talking on the pitch at training. And I think having that mentality kind of shows you that he could have stamped his feet. He could have been, oh well, I want to move. He could have had like an attitude about it. He could have been quite immature. Obviously, he's quite young, but he didn't. He used that, and he was, he wanted to prove him. He wanted to prove himself. He wanted to prove Arteta wrong. And kind of show him what he was missing in a sense. And I like that in a player.
Yeah.
Especially, a player that's coming into you've got to have quite a strong, personality as well to be able to do that. You've got to be quite confident to do it as well. It's a credit to him. So I was a little bit worried when, his contract was running out, because I was thinking, he's going to be thinking about that. Is he happy? And everything that I've seen, the celebrations against Bournemouth, his celebrations in general didn't look like an unhappy player to me, but there's still that little bit of doubt because of what's happened before. But I don't tend to worry too much now. Players go, and we'll get somebody else in. We're in a strong financial position as a club, and quite attractive as a club as well. We're getting big players. Getting Bryce Havertz. These are all names. These are all names that people know when you mention them. It's not somebody from
choosing us over United.
Yeah. And obviously he's worked with Ten Hag before, but he still chose us, new manager, new team. Now he's been a fan as well, hasn't he? He's been a fan of Arsenal since he was younger, and his family have, and it just shows you, how big we are actually as a club, even though we've had this period where we haven't been to the level we should have been. But we've still got Paul. We're still an attractive team. We're still a big club. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we both can agree that the future's bright for the club, isn't it? And whatever transfer window we go into, we know full well that we're going to come out a bit better than we went in. Which wasn't always the case, especially in the last decade. I think you hit the nail on the head there perfectly with the recruitment, the players' desires, and things like that. It's all points in the right direction, which is bodes well for the future. And to be honest, normally I get to this point of the transfer window and I think, oh fuck, well, what are we going to get this player in? We need one of these. We need one of these. He's got to go. He's got to go. And I'm just sitting there thinking, oh, well, just if it happens, it happens. I trust them completely to get whatever they can get done. It's everyone. You get some like YouTubers and that, don't you? That will demand Arsenal get rid of 16 players this week because they don't think they're good enough and all that crap.
Yeah,
and it just don't work like that. Some players just won't budge unless you like Maguire. Maguire is the perfect case. He's made it perfectly clear that he's not going to be playing football for Manchester United this year. He had a decent offer on the table from West Ham, didn't match his financial salary at United, but it was a good offer from West Ham. They're playing European football. He would have walked into the team. I think there was even rumours that he'd been promised the captaincy, and he said no.
Yeah,
because of money.
I think he wanted to pay off, didn't he? I think there's an issue that if he goes, then United have got to pay him X amount of money, and they don't want to do that either. So he'd rather sit on the bench
Yeah.
not contribute, just over money. Whereas I thought, as a football fan, as a player, you want to you want to play football. That's what you want to do. And, if you get 1 minute or you get 10 minutes, but you're not going to get any minutes, and you can go to a club where you're actually going to get to play and you're going to get paid as well. And you
Yeah.
say no because you just want to, high payoff, when for the last however long he's been being paid at United for doing nothing. And now he's happy doing it, which for me, it shows his mentality, and it makes sense of, why they've stripped him of it, why he's not improving as a player. Um, he's just not bothered. He just wants the
Does this does
he
his
just wants the
decision and
money.
his actions they kind of embarrass Southgate a little bit as well
Mm,
for continually picking him and then saying, he's got to play football if he's going to continue in the side and things like that. And he's at the moment just living off of a couple of good games in a tournament 3 years ago.
yeah,
He's now actively turning down first team football over for financial reasons.
mm,
Um, Southgate's got to get him out the team. I do not expect to see. He'll probably be in the squad next week, but I do not expect
yeah.
to see him starting football matches.
No,
You'd
no,
be
I
devastated,
agree with
wouldn't you,
you.
if he was another English centre half, a Colwell at Chelsea or
Mm.
Mark
Someone's actually
Guy at
contributing.
Palace.
Yeah,
Someone that's playing well for their club week in week out to lose out to that toe rag.
I know. I completely agree with you. And it's like he's never he's never going to change because he comes on and he made two mistakes in the pre-season.
Yeah,
Um, Onana lost his temper with him, didn't he? Was giving him what for, and he scored that many on goals, and I know they spent a lot of money on him, and I think that's part of the reason why they keep trying to give him his opportunities. But he's a liability. I remember when he got sent off against Watford. It was a couple of seasons ago now, and he couldn't believe that he was getting. I think it was a second yellow card. He couldn't believe he was getting a second yellow card, and you could see all day long that he'd made an absolute mess of it. Um, and then we've got him playing for England. When you say there's upcoming players and players that actually deserve a chance, that are playing week in week out, that are literally fighting, and then for Southgate, it's about favourites for Southgate, and that's what I don't like about him. Um, obviously he's took us into competitions, and he's got us further than obviously in my time, but he's still a liability, and it's not really fair on other players, and it doesn't it's not surprising that other players that aren't getting a look in for England are changing to other teams because they just know they're not going to get picked, even if they're better than it said player. They're not going to get the opportunity, and that's down to the manager.
yeah. No, I agree. And but my original point was with Maguire. It's just a pure example.
Mm.
I watch quite a bit of United fan base TV because I think I said to you before, Mark Goldbridge just makes me laugh. He cracks me
Yeah.
up. And it's nice just to see football from a different perspective and how
Mm.
a different fan base, and they are a fantastic fan base, the United fans,
Mm.
and how they look at the club. But there is a huge demand from their channel in particular, but all of them, for Maguire to be sold.
Yeah.
But when you get an instance like that where he just won't budge, what do you do as a club? There's only so much you can do. Transfers are a two-way street, club and player. And if the
Mm.
player's not willing to play ball, then what can you do?
Well, I guess you don't want to disrupt your player because then other players are going to see that, and I think it was the same with us with Aubameyang, wasn't it? Is that we had to set
Mm,
a precedent that this isn't acceptable. You can be, ex-captain, you can be the player that's taken Arsenal to titles, and you can be our best player, and the fans can absolutely love you. But if you don't do what's expected of you, and if you haven't got that relationship with the manager as well, then and I think that's why Arsenal made that decision, Arteta made that decision to terminate his contract because he was disruptive. So if
Yep.
Maguire's going to become disruptive, and every time people talk about United, they're going to talk about what's happening with Harry Maguire rather than talking about the performance and potential 3 points that they picked up, or a player that's done well. If you just keep going back to Harry Maguire, it kind of overshadows the team, and he could, obviously he can be disruptive. They're not going to want to hear about players that aren't there. So it's a bit of a tricky one, but I think their best bet would either be just pay him off or
Well, I was gobsmacked that United didn't take that up. They could have got 30 million in the door from West Ham, and I think West Ham offering him 70% of his wage. So United would have had to top it up by 30%. But they would have got him off the wage bill and that money in the door to strengthen their side. They can't. They're now looking at like they won't buy unless they sell. But their squad is so weak compared to everyone else's, and they've got players there like him that they're not going to use. They're just taking up a slot and a wage.
Yeah,
I thought it was really bad decision making.
Out. Now they've got players.
They've got
out
players
as well,
out. Yeah, they've got a long injury list again, haven't they?
Shaw, Mounts, Hoyland, the new guy.
Yeah, he's not fit, is he?
They've got got a few players that aren't.
Well, I think Malacia is injured, which is why he's not been playing. That's why they're looking for a left back.
So they're quite.
They're missing a few, aren't they?
Whereas if they'd have got that money from Maguire and saved that money on his wages, there could be. I know they've gone for Cucurella, haven't they? They've made a bid for him. I don't know if it's a loan or.
Yeah, it's a loan. I think it's basically done.
So I mean, that's not a bad move for them. But yeah, it's just,
on loan,
I guess you can't predict what's going to happen, can you? Obviously, when all this was going on, when Maguire, Shaw was still fit and Varane was fine. So, it's like hindsight, isn't it? But no, it's just you can't have players something bigger than the club, even if you're ex-captain. But I mean, if that was me, and I was in a job and I was captain of my team and I was stripped of it and it was made clear I was no longer wanted there, I'd be gone. It wouldn't be nice for the player, it wouldn't be nice for the team. So he's obviously grieved about something, isn't he? That's why he's digging his heels in. But I think the club have got to be a bit ruthless as well with him, and just get him gone. It's not really it's not really fair on outside the rest of the team.
No, I agree. There we go. Right, unless there's anything else you need to add, mate, I think I'm done.
I'd say just the prediction for Sunday. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. I'm going with a 2-1 Arsenal win. I don't think we'll keep a clean sheet because we're not capable of it. But yes, so yeah, 2-1 Arsenal.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go the same 2-1. I think it's going to be quite a tight game. I think, they're that kind of team, aren't they? You can't really judge them on what's happened. It's the same because you can't really judge us on the last 3 games either. But yeah, I think the home advantage will be something for us. I think it'll be a good game. Yeah, I want to say 2-1.
Yeah, I think yeah, and all we want is 3 points, isn't it? Like the performance is a nice sort of caveat to it, but 3 points is the main thing there.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, 2-1, and I'm fairly confident of that as well. I think we're in a better place than they are. So
yeah,
happy days, and we'd take that now, wouldn't we?